So what I was saying before we were so rudely interrupted is the importance of building rapport, building the relationship, and Lee was saying it's really about 100%. It's 100% about what you say. Paperwork's important, but it's building the relationship, asking powerful questions, asking questions to build rapport, build the relationship, and then at the end of the presentation, once you've gone through the paperwork, once you've gone over this, it's really about just, hey, let's get started. What do we need to do? And rather than, oh, you're gonna make us sign something. We have to hire you to be our realtor. Well, why wouldn't they hire you if you've done your job and you're knowledgeable and you built that rapport? Of course they want to work with you. Why wouldn't they? They've already come in to meet with you because they want somebody to lead them.
When I was new, I made a ton of mistakes. I didn't have a team. I wasn't on the shoulders of giants like a lot of new agents are these days. But even if you're not on a team, that I'm not saying that. But if you are within Keller Williams and you're not afraid to ask a question, how do I do this, or what do I do next, or how do I get through a slump, or things like that. You have to be resourceful, or you got to be able to have the confidence to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
In a weak moment, the person sitting in front of you as a buyer could get stuck with a weak agent, and I would say that most everyone in Keller Williams is not a weak agent, because they have so many resources to go through, and they have training classes every morning with us, and for mindset and scripts and all the things that you need to be a good agent. I would say you just need to have something of value for them, and gosh darn it, be worth your 3%. I mean, yes, there's going to be some deals that go so fast and so easy, and you feel guilty having 3%. But then the other flip side is you're going to have some that are really tough. So just be a great agent and be worth it, and do your buyer consults.
And the bold law, and I don't know if we've cut out before or after that. So it's all work expands to the time allowed. All work expands to the time allowed. Write that down.
Perfect.
That's for our agents on our team that are watching this. They have to write it down. That's why we do the bold law in every video. Okay.
So, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Jason Buyer, as you know, the market is really good in Fargo right now. Yes, it's right before winter, so there's a few houses that I can get you a deal on. Once we get to a house that's priced right, and you hired me to yes, we'll make it a win-win for everyone. I won't let you pay too much. I'll make sure you didn't buy a piece of junk, and I'm not going to stand in the way of a deal. I'm not going to let my thoughts or feelings or opinions or attitudes get in the way of you getting the house that you want. So when you say, this is the house I want, I'm not going to stand in the way. I'm not going to say, wait, don't you think you should have an engineer come and check out the basement, or I'm already having a home inspector going to check it out for you, and I'm not going to throw out the 1 in 10 million that could happen just to, so I'm here to help you calm your fears and get through it.
Yep.
So once we get to the house and I feel it's priced right, and I've done my diligence, number 7 or 6 on the it's fiduciary duties, and so I get make sure that you're in the right price per square foot for that house. And a lot of times, once you get to know, let me back up a little bit even further, this relationship is just as important as the relationship I built in the last 11 years with all of the listing agents, because now they know that, and I say this in the buyer consult, is that those listing agents, when I make an offer, if I need to be aggressive and I need to and I have to lean on my relationship with them in order to get the deal when there's 5 offers coming in, that's big, that's huge, because the other listing agents know that you and I, as a buyer and buyer agent, have been through this process. So you're educated, you are pre-approved, you know the process well. They know that I'm not going to lead them astray and make ridiculous offers. Mm-hmm. And when you say all that, it's just setting up their expectations. Oh, well, Lee's been through it. He knows that other agent.
So building relationships with listing agents as well as your buyer is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to be negotiating against and with the listing agent in order to put deals together. So,
if we find a house that's priced right, I may ask you to give them what they're asking, if that's to your best interest.
Okay.
First steps in buying a home. 100% of my clients choose buyer agency. That's the paperwork we just went over.
Okay.
I look at between 60 and 100 homes per month. So I know what's, if someone's way overpriced, I'll know it. Price per square foot is very easy to find out. It's on the listing. And did you know that appraisers get their information from us, from realtors? All of the data, when I sell a house, I have to put in exact data in the MLS, and that's where all of the appraisers get their information in order to find comparable sales and figure out if a house is worth what you're paying for or
Right.
not. So isn't that cool? I mean, I have the same data that appraisers have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll know if it's overpriced. I won't let you pay too much. Being pre-approved, thanks. When we talked the other day, appreciate you reaching out to that lender that I referred to you, and sounds like everything's looking good on your pre-approval. So thanks for getting that ball rolling. If you haven't done that yet, if my buyer hasn't done that yet, then that's something they need to do before our first showings. At least get the ball rolling or reach out to their lender. If we get to a multiple offer situation and there's three buyers in on the deal, and two of them don't have a pre-approval, if you were the seller, which two offers would you look at?
The ones that have a pre-approval.
Correct.
What do you do if you know that they need to get pre-approved before the meeting? Will you work with them before the meeting to set up a meeting with the lender? Or do you try to have the lender come into the meeting, or do you try to meet them after the meeting or before? What do you try to do? What's your general approach?
Yep. When I first talk to them as a buyer, I'll talk about pre-approval and why that's important, and I'll encourage them. The night before our buyer consult or our meeting, our get together, I'll ask them again. Hey, did you get that link I sent you? Did you? I promise it only takes 5 to 10 minutes to get the ball rolling on that. Did you get that done yet? And if they haven't, then is there any chance you could promise to do that before our meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock? I know that you'll be really impressed with Aaron. He does a really good job, and if you were my little brother, I would want to make sure that you're not paying too much in fees and all that stuff. So is that okay? Could you make sure and do that before we come into?
Yeah,
the
we'll
meeting?
do it.
And if they still haven't, then I have to bring out the big guns and stress to them even farther. But when you say that, they do it every time. And if they have terrible credit, that's when you find out. So asking that tough question and explaining it to them why it's important to do to meet with the lender, or at least fill out the online application, or just call Aaron for 5 minutes and say, hey, Lee told me to call you. It says you're really good. What can you show me, or what can you do for me?
And if they have terrible credit, then will you meet with them? Let's say their credit's 450 and they just had a bankruptcy or foreclosure. Is there any point in meeting with them, or will you just call them back and say, sounds like we're X amount of time out? Just because the agent's time is very valuable too. So.
Yep. I forgot to ask a few times when I was brand new 10 years ago. So then I wasted time, and I even showed a lot of properties, sometimes even rural properties and houses that were under 100,000. And so I didn't have my bowling bumpers in line.
Mm-hmm.
This buyer consult is your bowling bumpers. You won't make the big mistakes if you do that, because you already communicated it. Someone already did it the right way and put it in a PowerPoint. So now, once you go through all this, the big bad things can't happen anymore.
So did you hear that? Don't show houses to buyers that are not pre-approved.
Correct.
Write that on your, write it down and tape it above your bathroom mirror at home.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that Lee says, he might give them one free showing if he feels good about it. If he feels like, hey, if he's asked the right questions and feels confident that they can get pre-approved, but don't get in that habit. I've already seen too many buyer agents, and too many agents in general just get in the habit of being a Pop-Tart agent, going around showing houses to anybody and everybody, and never having the guts to ask the question or to tell them, let's go in and get pre-approved.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll listen to you because you're a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I do the right thing because I have a strong urge never to starve to death, or my kids.
That's why Lee bought 60 cans of chicken noodle soup to bring to the office, and I just ate one before this.
73
For
cents
this
a piece.
trade.
And you owe me 73 cents.
It's a big big sale at Cashwise Foods apparently. So he bought a trunk load of chicken noodle soup.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good though.
You know what word?
Campbell's too.
The main.
Not even the generic stuff.
The one word that made me buy 100 cans of soup.
What?
Efficiency. If I'm in here doing my lead gen, kicking butt, and drumming up people to come in for a buyer consult, I don't want to have to leave
To go get lunch.
to go get lunch.
I love it. I love it.
So, seller pays my commission. Here's a few things. I don't know what just happened.
Google Calendars.
Well, here we go. A few things to look for. I already went through and explained to you the difference between closing costs and down payment. They're two different things.
Mhm.
And I put the $1,500 is what the total payment is, and that your principal and interest. The total of that is principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and specials. So that's $1,000 P&I, taxes, insurance, specials. I did that backwards, but that's why it's $1,500. You pay that to the bank, and so your closing costs are, approximately this. So this is just a fast forward version of what explained to them. Down payment is going to be between 0 and 100%. So most of the time it's 3.5%. You can get a conventional loan for 3%, and closing costs. Here's a breakdown of what closing costs are: origination fee, taxes, insurance, and specials are the other thing, and that $2,000 goes into an escrow account. And then every month when you make your payments, $500 goes into this account. And at the end of the year, you have this $5,000 that pays your yearly installments of the specials, the taxes, and the insurance.
Do you go through this? Because I'm assuming that when you're going through this, a lot of people kind of get what you're talking about, but what it also does is shows that you're professional and you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. I mean, do you do it for that reason mostly?
That also, just to let them know that. And I say, you don't have to know all of this. This is just things that I go through, and I take the worry off of your plate for you.
Right. So he's showing by doing that it's another way to show I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same every time. Just practice. So when we walk out of a house and you say, Lee, this is the house we want, don't lose it for me.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 things that I'll ask you that I need in order to go back to my office and write this up in an email. And by the way, after we find the right house and I ask you these 5 questions and we go back, the only thing that you'll need from then, we don't even need to get together anymore. If you're old fashioned and that's okay, and you want to get together and have hard copies of paperwork, that's fine. But this is the quickest, easiest way for us to get the offer in the seller's hands, so that it betters our chance of getting them to accept it. Because I'll write it up and I'll email it to you. Do you have a smartphone or
Yep.
a laptop that
Sure.
you'd be able to check? So after I leave here, and you say make an offer, I'll make the offer and I'll just give them, communicate up front how long before they're going to get that email. So Jason, within 90 minutes of right now, I promise I'll email you unless something crazy happens, but I'll get together all the disclosures, every piece of information that I need, and then so you could either right now at the house give me earnest money check, or we can just wait till we get it accepted and I'll have you drop it off at the listing office tomorrow, and I'll have you take a phone picture of it so that we have a copy of it also. So that's what we're going to do. So what I'll need now that you're going to make an offer is what name on the title, how much are you going to offer,
Okay.
and I'll help you with that. What contingencies are you putting in the offer? These are contingencies that protect you and your earnest money if anything was to go wrong with the appraisal or the inspection.
Okay.
Or if you have a house to sell, that's a contingency. Everything that protects you so that you don't own 2 houses or be homeless. So there's different a right of first refusal and a subject to owner's purchase, so a ROFR or a stop clause that can go in there too. So those are contingencies, number 3. 4 is earnest money. So how much earnest money? I usually get away with $1,000. If it's under $100,000 house, I might only need $500. But if it's over $250,000, I might get closer to the 1% of the purchase price range.
Okay.
And the last thing is what day we're going to close. And don't worry about that. I'll help you through all these. I already know all the answers to these, but I'll just to make you feel good, I'll ask you the questions anyways.
Fair enough.
So that's what this is going. Oh, looks like we need to hurry.
Oh, battery dying?
Mm-hmm. If it does, that's okay. I can finish up. Once it's time to start shopping, I already asked you or set you up on the MLS. You already got that. For sale by owner, new construction homes.
Let's go over that quick. So one of the things that Lee does, correct, you'll reach out to them right away, find out exactly what they're looking for, and set them up on an MLS search.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an appointment that was set by somebody else for you, or if it's your own sphere, friend, or family, you'll always set them up before the appointment, so they start getting emails from you right away. It's another way to build rapport, and they kind of feel a little bit more connected to you even before the meeting. So.
Yep, and it's a good place to drop on them that they need to talk to the lender first, and building rapport so that they're confident enough or they like me just enough to come into this meeting, and then they get the full effect.
What else we got for?
So, yep, for sale by owner and new construction homes. Don't worry, Mr. Buyer, I'm here for you on that too. I'll give you a little tag that says I'm with Lee. So when you go into the open houses, you can say that you're with Lee, and then they'll leave you alone. They won't bug you. Most of the time in an open house, that agent is affiliated with the seller in some way, shape, or form. They're helping them out. So I'll be in your corner helping you get a good deal. For sale by owner, new construction too. Just call me. You know, I can negotiate for you. Make sure you get the same treatment that you do throughout a regular process when the house is listed on the market.
Okay. You remember what the other slides were?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Home inspections, to make sure that when we have a home inspection done, that home inspection is to find stuff wrong with that property. And if you have a home inspection, it's about $315. And when Daryl emails that back to us, it's a 25-page report, colored pictures, and you don't have to show up at the house if you don't want to, but you can. He's a licensed agent too, but you as the buyer don't have to show up there. He does the same exact job whether or not, but you can ask all the questions that you want. Is fine. But then, when we get to negotiating off of that, I'll make sure as your agent that you're protected, that if there's anything that's a major item or a safety issue, I'll get that. I mean, you can say, no, we're just going to take it as is if you know that we were competing and there's other offers and stuff if you want to take it as is. But if you don't, that's what I'll advise you, is to ask for anything that's, safety issues, open wire in the panel or something like that, or if it's a major issue that we didn't know about before we looked at the property, if it's a crack in the foundation that's going to affect financing or something like that. Climbing up the ladder, and then I hold the lender's hand throughout the whole process. Sorry, Aaron. And then we go through to closing table, and that's take about 15 to 30 minutes depending on however many questions you have. And we close right here at Regency Title. If you wish, you can use whichever title company you want, but that's where we close. That's where we'll be closing in 40 days from now. Mm-hmm. And then we get final approval from the bank. We close on time. Worst case, we have to push it back a little bit, but don't worry. We've got some extra options for you. So worst case, appraisal doesn't come in quite in time and we have to push it back a few days. Don't worry, I'll coach you through that. But that's worst case scenario, and that only happens 1 in 30 times, so 1 in 50 maybe. And after that, you're a homeowner. Am I hired?
Yeah.
Great. You and Mr. and Mrs. I have 2 pens if there's 2 people come to the console.
Okay.
And I always make sure that all decision makers are at the buyer console. Unless it's an LLC on this part, then I don't make any other decision makers come, because one person can sign for an LLC like an investor. But if it's just the man coming in, make sure that you ask him if all decisions or makers are coming in, because Mrs. Buyer needs to be there, otherwise they won't be on the same page.
So if it's just the husband that comes in, or just the wife that comes in, and you don't ask and you have them sign all this paperwork, then you have to go through after and have the other spouse fill out the paperwork as far as the paperwork side of it goes?
If it's just a one-legger, we call them, reschedule. The ISAs are really good at setting it up so that all decision makers are there, but try as hard as you can to have both decision makers there.
Right, and then because what you just said is they won't be on the same page.
Mhm.
So then you might have built a great rapport with one of them, and then you go out and start showing houses with both of them, and the second one doesn't know you,
Mhm.
and so they don't understand the process, they don't understand what you're going to do. They're going to get the inspection report back and say, oh my God, there's a million things wrong.
Mhm.
So there'll be a little bit of a disconnect. So
Yep.
okay.
That's it.
Any other tips or tricks?
Nope. Once you're hired, then and you went through and you were an awesome agent and you explained to them the whole process, that's your job. To be a great agent, explain the process, make it fun while you're doing it. Don't let them pay too much or buy a piece of junk.
And and the one thing that Lee does really well throughout the presentation, you can if you watch it over again, you could keep track of how many different tie downs he uses. So once you hire me and once you find the perfect home and all of these other things that he says throughout. I mean, he says it multiple times, and they call those in sales. They call them tie downs. So it's a tie down. He's moving them forward in the process, and by the end, that's why we discussed earlier. By the end of the presentation, which is 45 minutes to an hour, they feel like they know him. Subconsciously they've already pretty much hired him and want to move forward with him. And so it's not really even a close at the end when he says, so am I hired? Of course you're hired. So that's why this process is so important.
Also, if you can make them laugh, you got them.
Yep. Make them like you.
And it's your job. Just make it
So
fun.
if you don't have a good sense of humor, go find one. Or you can get some jokes, steal some jokes from Lee.
Yeah, or Google them. Only the clean ones, though.
Yeah. Or Maddie has good jokes too, Lee's daughter. So, all right, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.